We will start the Human Week Summit with a very exciting conversation. I have two valuable guests. On one hand, we have Mr. Murat here together with me, who is a well-recognized global businessman. On the other hand of the line is Perttu from Finland, and Mr. Ülker, who is chairman at Pledis and Godivia and board member at Yıldız Holding. Welcome, both of you.
COVID-19, though it's a pandemic, the effects will not be on health-wise, but more on social. So COVID just changed everything in our world, especially in my world. Now I'm more teaming up, telework, distant, less traveling, all these things. Big disruption to my life, but I enjoy more, I would say. And also I'm proud that I could make it. I can change myself.
Change is the key word here, I think. And Perttu, what do you think will be the permanent effects of COVID-19?
I think one of the first effects is that we can't and won't look so far anymore. It doesn't really make sense to make strategies or plans in 5 or 10 years because nobody can know even 2 years ahead. So we have to kind of focus more on the short-term future. But obviously this time that is quite challenging for all of us, it has forced us to learn new things as well, new skills and capabilities. I think the skill to adapt to different scenarios, different environments has become very important, and self kind of reflection and inner listening. And when you change the environment, you kind of have to look things in a new perspective. So I think this has been a time of reflection for many of us. What kind of life do we want? And is this something that we want to keep? Like Mr. Lker said, are there some habits, some changed behavior that, we will keep now on? Or are we going back to whatever it was before? So I think it has really forced us to rethink many things.
In your book, you wrote, "Don't waste a good crisis. Crisis is a perfect opportunity to learn something." What did this crisis taught you?
If something goes wrong, we get a crisis. Obviously, it's not nice, but there's always something to learn from it. And therefore, we should not waste a good crisis. I think it's difficult to make a general kind of rule or advice because the crisis pandemic has treated people very differently. For some, it has changed everything. For some, it hasn't changed much. So I wouldn't say that there's one or two things that everybody have learned from it. But as I said actually before, I think reflection, it has become more and more important. If we only do things, but we don't stop to think, what did we do well? Or what did we do, badly? Or is there something we could improve next time? Then we will never learn from mistakes. So I think the pandemic was kind of a forced full stop for everybody to reflect, what is important at the end of the day. What do we really need? We learn to value human interaction in a completely new way because of these digital solutions like these Teams and Zooms. And so I think we should not try to go too fast ahead, and try to kind of get rid of the pandemic, rid of the crisis, but we need to kind of learn the lesson. And then when we're ready, kind of move forward.
How about you, Mr. Ülker? What are the main lessons from this period you learned?
Just two things. First, so we must be ready for any change. So we must disrupt ourselves always and look and plan for something different. So we must not expect till it comes to us, but we must walk to it. The second thing is, so I learned all my life, everything can change. So we must be ready to change.
Mr. Ülker, how would you describe this demanding environment?
This is not something new because I remember how cruel I was to my father when I started working and how disruptive I was to his team when I was young. So I was another generation, but the only difference now is I have 3 kids. The oldest one already graduated, started working with me and is disrupting me. I cannot understand him sometimes. I have to ask what you really mean. And the others, the newcomers, they are still at the university, not even their brother understand them. So the generation change is very quick and disruptive, and we have to still live with it. So I enjoy that. I try to be one of them. I'm the black swan, but anyhow, it's better than the ugly duck.
Because even I notice it. If I talk with somebody who is only 2, 3, 4 years younger than me, I already see that we were products of different time almost. I was not on social media as a teenager until I was, I think, 18, 19. So I was the last ones to go through school without, Snapchat and Instagrams and so on. But when I talk with somebody who is a couple of years younger than me, well, they had the social media and changed them. They think different. I feel like how is it possible that only a couple of years has made us so different from each other? And one story I tell in the book as well is that when I was in Myanmar, in my visiting a friend, they had a girl about like 9-10-year-old, and this girl, her birthday was coming up, so she told everybody that I want this factory on my desk for my birthday gift. And none of us adults realized, what is this toy? Like, what is she talking about? Factory on a desk. What is that? Until someone realized, hey, she's talking about 3D printers, but she just doesn't know the word. That is kind of factory on a desk, right? So we whispered to her, hey, that's a 3D printer. So she ran to her mom, grandparents, and shouted, I want a 3D printer for my birthday. And very excited. And the grandparents didn't know what a 3D printer is. They had never seen one. They were not able to react and respond to the girl's emotions in any way. And I was looking at this from afar and thinking, is it possible that we grow apart? We don't understand, we don't realize, it's impossible for us to jump into the other person's world. Like, it's very different from what we had. So I think it's very crucial that we have people from different age groups and we learn from each other. Just like you said, it's crucial for our survival.
Well, Perttu, in your book, you raised the question, why some people are smarter than others?
We all have a different perspective to problems. And now that our problems seem to become more complex, there are more layers, more factors in it, we need to make sure that we have enough different kind of people to kind of explain what the problem is from their perspective. Like if I take, let's say, climate change as an example. It's a huge problem, we need to solve it, but depending on who I ask, I get very different answers to how we solve it. If I ask a politician, how do we solve climate change? The way they see it is, of course, well, through regulation and laws. And this is the way to solve it. If I ask entrepreneurs, well, they will say, well, it's businesses who really have the impact and they can change things in one day, something that governments cannot do, right? Or if I ask teachers, they will say that it all starts with education, right? If I ask futurists, they will talk about new technology. And if I ask from artists, they say we need to make music, art, documentaries, give people the emotion so that they want the change, so cultural change. So all these answers are quite different from each other, but they're all right. But my point is that depending on who I ask from, I get very different answers. So in today's business, we need to make sure that we are not surrounded by people who are just like us and think just like us, who have the same education, same background, but rather diversity is crucial for us to solve these complex problems in the future. So I would say this is one thing we have to keep in mind going forward.
What do you do when some people don't agree with you, Mr. Ülker?
I'm patient. I don't want to convince them. I just want to share my opinion with them and share the reality. How does it look from different angles? And try to learn something. Sometimes it is worth it, which is very good. Sometimes it is back to square one. It's your chance.
Going back to your book, Perttu, you describe the skills of the future, and you are saying like benefiting from the new technologies, adapting easily, being curious, asking the right questions, problem solving, passion, storytelling, critical thinking, teamwork. Well, they all sound good, but one might say most of them are kind of old-fashioned. But you are talking about the future skills.
We take a step back. I mean, why do we value these skills more? With the technological revolution, the counterbalance is something very interesting, important. When we get things digital, when we digital our societies, we need to counterbalance it with human, elements, human skills. Because the computers, the machines, they are not curious. They can't tell stories about their childhoods because they didn't have those. Like they cannot foster their well-being and share their insights, or, they lack certain elements that make us human. And in this way, the human skills have always been important, but the more technological we'll become, the more humane we should also become. So the skills that we value at each time is, of course, related to what is needed. And now that the world is getting very tech savvy, which is nice, which is great, I'm very it's wonderful. We just need to make sure that we don't forget the humans. There's still a lot of things that only humans can really give input in. So giving meaning, for example, we can tell why we do certain things. We can tell what was the reason behind it, what the motivation was. We can share this with other people. So yes, these skills are old, but they have become more important due to technological revolution.